So, ladies and gentlemen, this is William A. Yarborough, and we are going to be talking about playing guitar. I'm going to pretend that you have never ever played guitar a day in your life, and my objective by the second, third, fourth lesson, depending on where you're at, but by that time, you ought to be able to play a riff or a song, part of a song, and that's what we're going to do. But in that, very first thing I ask every single student and anybody who's ever taken lessons with me, I say those exact words and these exact words. I ask the question, do you know the major scale? And 9.9 times out of 10, they do not know the major scale. I don't know why that is, but before I played guitar, I played horns and all kinds of things, choir, about 6 years prior to guitar. And in my recollection now, as an adult, I think back and every single day we were playing major scales before we played any piece of music. Oftentimes at least like two keys. But anyhow, the major scale is a foundation for all things music. In order to say or talk about things like a minor chord or to understand what that means, it's a lot easier if you already know what major means. And so we're going to get right to it and work with the E major, mostly because it's the key of the guitar, and it's what both the outer strings are tuned to, so they're easy to access because they're on the outside. Now this of course is assuming that your guitar is in tune and you're just ready to go. But I will say, in the context of what we're about to do, just working with one string, it won't make that big of a difference. But I am ultimately going to show you this scale using two strings. And you'll start to notice as we progress into playing chords and whatnot, tuning is really important. But so there's a lot of little details within all of this, but I'll try and cover as much as I can. But thing number one, when you're playing, make sure that you're playing like right behind. Notice where my index finger is right now, right behind the wire. You don't want to be on it because it chokes. Notice this is the pitch I should be going for on the second fret of the E. If I'm really far forward, it starts to choke, or you could possibly end up being at the far back side of the next fret up, in which case you're generating another note. And same thing in reverse. If I get too low, it's going to choke. So yeah, just kind of be conscious of that. But so if you can remember these numbers, 0, which is also the same thing as open, 0, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. Those are the frets that we need to play in order to play a major scale using a open string. Hint, hint, this is also transferable to any other string because the pattern starts with the open string. And by the way, as I play guitar, I tend to think of patterns probably more than I think of notes. As much as I do know the notes I'm playing, I don't really think about that. I just think about the pattern. But so the pattern again, 0, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. Those are the frets we're going to play. So 0, meaning nothing. Look, Mom, no hands. But the rest of the time you will need some sort of finger. I do, in progression, get more picky about what finger you're using to play things. But right now, in the context of one string, it doesn't so much matter. So 0, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 12. And actually, let's go ahead and do that backwards. So it'll be 12, 11, 9, 7, 5, 4, 2, open, or 0. Another thing I want you to go ahead and be thinking about now before we move this any other position is counting. And as much as I'm saying counting, what we're counting or identifying is the intervals. This is a term that will take you far if you understand what it refers to. But basically it is like counting, except when you get to the last note, that 12th fret is going to be a 1 and not a 8, although they're really the same thing. But so open is 1, 2 is 2, 4 is 3, 5 is 4, 7 is 5, 9 is 6, 7 is 11, or excuse me, I guess I should say 11. The 11th fret is 7, and then again 12 is, instead of 1, it's, instead of 8, it's 1. So you think of the major scale as being 7 different notes, although it's 8 total if you go from low E to high E. By the way, that's called an octave. Same note, different range, low and high. That's something else to be thinking about. Another way I'm going to throw out there for you to think about is think of the actual notes. So even though this is a small lesson and only talking about one string and whatnot, there's many different ways to work with it and try and ingrain it in your brain. So that first note that you're playing on the E string, when we're playing it open, that's a E. The second note is a F sharp. The third note is a G sharp. Fourth note is a A. Fifth note is a B. Sixth note is a C sharp. Seventh note is a D sharp. And again, that eighth note is a E. So even just then, when I was saying the first note, the second note, the third, that's the same thing as intervals. So try not to get too confused. I know if you've never heard of these things, it might be overwhelming, but just take it one thing at a time. Just start by, feeling comfortable. Just get comfortable doing that. And the beauty of this being a video, you can go back and pick up this piece, pick up that piece. The next part would be the intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. The next one would be the notes. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. I don't know if you noticed I was making eye contact with you just then. That's another thing you can strive to do, is try to play that same thing without looking. The sooner, just throwing this out there because I see it all the time with beginners, and I did it too when I first started. When people are playing, they look at their left hand and then they look at their right hand to make sure that things are lining up. And usually, if they are, they're slow about getting to the next note or two. They usually aren't. As much as they're trying to be together, they're not together. So try to just have confidence in your right hand that you are, on the string that you need to be on. Maybe thing number one, maybe not be to look away like I was looking away. I wasn't looking at the guitar at all when I was doing it. But more often than not, look at your left hand to see where you're going. Make sure you're going to the right fret. 0, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. Make sure you're going there. And let your right hand catch up. So I wanted to show you that in 2 other positions. That was my initial goal, was to give it to you in three different ways. So the next one though, or the next 2, we're going to incorporate the B string. So that's the next string up. This would of course be after you have mastered step number 1, just doing it on one string. We're going to incorporate this B string because in the next lesson, I'm going to talk about chords, and you need 2 or more notes to play a chord, which means you really need 2 or more strings. So we need 2 strings. So let's go ahead and get this here. Starting on the 5th fret now of the B, because that's the same as the open E. Essentially, we're going to follow the same pattern up. Actually, we're just going to play the first 2 notes the same. Or as far as patterns. So the first 2 notes will be on the B, and the rest of the notes will be on the E, exactly like they were before. So the first 2 notes on the B we're going to play are going to be 5 and 7. Just like when we played on the E, it was 0, 2. So after that 5 and 7 on the B, we're going to go down to the 4 of the E, and then it's going to carry on like before, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. So let me start back at the beginning. So 5, 7 on the B, and then carry on like before on the E. You could even go backwards. And then lastly, we're going to do the same thing. We could do that a bunch of different ways, really, but I'm just going to stick to this one other one. In which case, we're going to go up as high as 12 on the B string, and then play the duration of the notes on the E. So now we're again back to kind of following the pattern of that we were when we were playing open. So it's going to be 5, 7, 9, 10, 12, all on the B string. And then after that 12, we're going to go down to the E and play 9, 11, 12. Again, on the B, 5, 7, 9, 10, 12. To the E, 9, 11, 12. All together. And then backwards. And that's all I want you to work with right now. But practice it. And again, the same information as far as intervals and notes, it's the same thing. That was maybe something I didn't mention about guitar. Maybe I'll say it now. But the difficult thing that is with guitar, I would say, is the fact that you can replicate the same, same things in multiple places all over the neck of the guitar. Like common question people ask adults more often than not: is it hard to learn guitar? And I don't think that it's hard. I think that it's a lot of information. It's really a lot of repeating things. But as far as getting to the nitty gritty, like if I said E, you got to know where E is. If a band said, "Hey, we're playing in the key of E," you need to know all the places where E are, and then everything else is kind of from those points. But we'll get more into that. But I hope this was helpful and get you going. And till we meet again, rock on.